Hi ladies, this is Milan here of So Natural Wellness, and I just wanted to come to you this evening because today is day 2 of Keep It Simple and Dine Well. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about what tools do you need to execute a simple menu and to make sure that you get in and out of the kitchen within 45 minutes, okay? So I'm just going to take you through some of the items that I use because I find that we can complicate our menu. We can complicate cooking and it becomes this overwhelming project that can really throw us off balance. So once you see what I have, and the reason that I pull these particular items, because when I work with one of my chef clients, I always make sure that I have what I can take with me. So I have a nice carry bag that has wheels on it that's portable, and I can take what I need with me. So I make sure that whatever I have is not very heavy. And even in my home, there are a lot of things that I would love to have that have a beautiful price point on them, but I don't, because number one, I live in a city condo, so I only have so much space. Number two, because I just don't like a lot of cookware, heavy cookware. I've always liked lighter pieces, but pieces that will last me basically for a long time. I mean, I've had some of my cookware pieces for over 15 years. So, and I just keep them really nice and clean, and I'll show you that in a minute. So just to get started underway, I'm just going to start with a few things that I always make sure that I have on hand that helps me to get in and out of the kitchen in a timely fashion. So one of the tools that you need, we're going to start with the basics. And the basic is this, a cutting board. This cutting board is by Mountain Woods. It's a very good cutting board. It's always funny. So I use this, and the reason I use this, a lot of people have the tendency to use a lot of different types of cutting boards. Hi Monica, thanks for joining me. So this is a really nice cutting board, and the reason I use this one because it's wood. It's all natural wood. It's breathable. It's natural. The thing about wood compared to, like, when I was growing up, I think my mother, she had these like little plastic cutting boards, and I think once upon a time before I went to culinary school, I even had these glass cutting boards because I felt keep my meat separate, put my meat with the cutting board that I use for my vegetables. But there's a problem with that. But I want you to type in below. Monica, I know your husband is a chef as well, but before that, is there any type of cutting board that you use before that? Before, I guess, your husband being a chef, did you use any, like a wood, or did you use plastic? Can you maybe comment in the bottom? So if you're watching this video, if you're watching a replay, make sure you put at the bottom replay and let me know what you're watching. So right now I'm just curious to know, what type of cutting boards do you have in the house, or have you had before or in the past? So this particular cutting board, this is a wood. The plastic ones, you don't want to use that because they will harbor bacteria. And the glass cutting boards, you definitely don't want to use the glass cutting boards, because the glass cutting boards will actually dull your knife, and they can actually cause damage to your knife, especially if you have a really good chef's knife. So this is an amazing cutting board. And what I do, once I clean it, I wash it, and I use this for both. I use this for my vegetables, I use this for my meat, because here's the thing. If you're using a plastic cutting board, and one of those little, like, thick plastic cutting boards, you're using that, and you get a cut in it with your knife, the cut, no matter how much you clean it, will always be there. And as you're cooking, as you're working with meat, it will be in the crevices, and you can't clean that out. But wood, because wood is all natural, it doesn't, you're able to clean it. Wood doesn't leave a deep crevice imprint in it, just like plastic would. So you definitely want to make sure you're starting out using the right cutting board. So to keep it stabilized on my my marble countertops, I just use this, and you can get these, I think I've even seen these in a Dollar Tree, but you can get these in any supply store, culinary supply store as well. And I just put this on the bottom, and it keeps my cutting board in place and stabilized. So make sure that you have a nice wood cutting board to work on, so that you can, you know, make sure that your cooking is safe and sanitary. And with that, all you need is soap, hot soapy water. You know, maybe mix a little bleach with the hot soapy water and clean it, and then you're fine. In order to maintain a wood cutting board of that nature, you want to make sure that you're using, let's see, I thought, here it is right here. So you want to make sure, if you're using that type of cutting board, to keep it nice and beautiful and to preserve it, I use mineral oil. So mineral oil is a natural oil, and is, you know, doesn't have any smell or any odor, and it works really good in making sure that my cutting board is nice, it's clean, and that the wood, you know, stays natural, and that so it just works perfect. So make sure you have some of this. So I usually clean my cutting board with a wood treatment. I clean it, and then I do a wood treatment with a paper towel, like maybe once a week, or like, you know, once a month, something like that. So that's good to have as well. The second thing we're going to talk about that's good to have, let's see, I don't know if I can bring my camera. I can't bring my camera over here to bring the whole thing with me, but this is my tool number 2. Although I do not take this with me when I go to my chef client, but if I'm working with a wellness clients, we will definitely talk about using a Vitamix. And the Vitamix is easy to use, it's easy to clean. You can do soups, especially for winter. You can do your soups and things in here. I just clean it with some warm water and dishwater. So that's just something else that's, you know, nice to have on hand, and it's easy to use. The third thing that I have on hand, I'm going to start from my left to right, is I use, because it's just myself and my husband, I use a small stock pot. This, it's very small. I think this is simply Calphalon. So I use this. If you have a Le Creuset, beautiful. Like I said, Le Creusets have a really nice price point, and I love them to death. I love the braziers. I love the Dutch oven. But I can't, they're not portable for me. They're very heavy. They take up space. So I personally do not have one. I chose not to buy one simply for that reason, because I can't, it's not that mobile for me. So I have one of these. So for my husband and I, when I'm making like a rice or risotto, something small, I'll do it in this. I do have a nonstick pan. So this is my nonstick pan, and I've had this for a long time. This is a Le Creuset. I have a nonstick pan only for one thing. So if you have a nonstick pan, only have it for one thing and one thing only. And that's if you're doing an omelet or you're doing some eggs. You don't want them to stick. That's the only reason why. And I'll show you what I do use for my meat. So I never use this for any of my fish, my meat, or anything like that, because because it's non-stick, it will absorb whatever, like release more liquids. And I don't want that for my meats. I don't want it to be releasing liquids in my hot pan, because it'll change completely the outcome of what you're making. Here's another thing that I use. I also use, I love this. This was my grandmother's. And if you have one of these, this is priceless. You're gonna die when I tell you this story. When my grandmother passed away, not first passed away, as if she died several times, but when my grandmother passed away, she had one of these, and we were moving, just getting rid of a lot of her stuff, and this was there, and I think it was a 10-inch, but I didn't know the value of it at the time. So I had this 10, and it was so heavy and bulky, and I didn't want to bring it home because I had cleaned out her house already. It was just too much stuff. So I got rid of it. I gave it away to charity. Of course, that's good. That's a good thing, right? They can definitely use it. But this was invaluable. So I was hurt after I learned the true nature and the value of this. I was really hurt because this is an heirloom. This is definitely my family heirloom. After I learned the value of it, I found another one. My mother was doing some cleaning in her storage unit, and she's like, here. She's like, look what I found. This was Mama's. And I was like, oh, I said my mom. Excuse me. I go back and forth in French. I've been speaking French most of the day today. So she gave it to me. So I've had this for over a year now, and I love this. This is priceless. So I do a lot of like my steaks in here, or something like that. Mostly like my red meats. I just have this, and I'll even do, like, if I do a frittata, I do my frittatas in here as well. And it's really non-stick, and to keep it clean, of course, I'll put a little oil in there and wipe it out. So moving on, the next simple cookware that I always have and I always use, I keep this. I make my pastas in here. I don't use a big stock pot. Another thing, takes up a lot of space, although I have a lot of cabinets. Oh, thanks, Cheryl. Good to see you watching. So I have so much information. I just want to share this with you, and then at the end, if you have questions, please let me know. But if you have questions now, just pop them in so that I can answer them. So this is Cuisinart. I have this. I think I got this years ago somewhere. I don't remember. This is probably pre-culinary school, and I just keep it. But I use this, and I make pasta in this, or I make like an antipasta. I cook my noodles and stuff in here. So this is good to have as well. Really light, doesn't take up a lot of space. The next thing that I have, this is invaluable. This is my baby. If I got rid of everything that I have and only could keep two things, somebody says you can only keep two things to cook with, what will it be? This will be number one. And number two would probably be, I gotta keep Grandmama's thing. I have to keep that. But I think the next thing I'll probably keep is my nonstick pan, because I enjoy making eggs. Then I'll figure out how to make my pasta, or I would just stop eating pasta. So this is invaluable. This, I do everything in this. Everything. I make risotto in this. I do all my searing. I do have a top for this, so I do everything. I pop it in the oven, I put it on the stove, and I've had this for over 10 years. If you notice, it still looks new, because once you clean this with like a scouring, not a abrasive scouring pad, but I forgot what they call that one, but the more milder one, once I clean it, then I just put some olive oil on a paper towel and wipe it through, and that's what keeps me to have that shine, so it always looks like new. And you just have to remember when you take it out of the oven that it is hot, so always make sure you have, when you're wearing your apron, like I am, your nice apron, that you also have a towel next to you, so if you go back into the stove, you remember that this is hot. I made the mistake of not having a towel on hand when I was in culinary school, and burned my hand because I forgot. But I didn't want to drop my entree that I was getting ready to serve to the chef, so I grabbed it and hurried over and went to the table, and my hand had this huge burn print in the inside of it. So definitely make sure you have one of these. So we're gonna do some cooking tomorrow, and I'm going to show you as I use this. So I use this for searing, for sauteing, and I get some beautiful caramelization in this. We'll talk about that tomorrow as well. I get some beautiful, like, searing the outside of my meat or fish in this thing. So this is priceless as well. The next thing I want to talk about is the proper knife. I'm not going to go into details about which knife should you choose by whom, because that's a personal choice. But I will let you know that I use an 8-inch chef's knife, and this is a Shun, Japanese chef's knife. And you just have to make sure that you're always honing it. There's a my honing steel. Thought I had it right here, which I usually do. I keep it okay. So if your knife is really good, you don't have to sharpen it all the time, but you want to make sure that when you are using it, after each use, that you hone it. Means that you're making sure to keep the blades flat. So once it's sharp, but over a period of time you're using it, the blades will start to stand up. They're really small, you can't even notice it. So you want to make sure that your blades stay nice and thin. And if you ever buy a nice chef's knife, you invest in it. Hi Tony, how are you, darling? So if you ever make sure that when you're using a chef's knife, wherever you purchase it from, make sure the person show you how to use it, or just ask me. So you want to know how to use these, because if you're using them improperly, you can actually hurt yourself because it is very sharp. Also, you can get some of the most beautiful cuts and techniques out of using a really good chef's knife. And if you are going to have if you're going to have a knife, if you have a block of knives, I'm letting you know right now, get rid of it. Don't even keep it. Having a block of knife is useless, because the only thing that you really need when it comes to using a knife, your chef's knife, and maybe a paring knife, and maybe a fillet knife. That's it. And a bread knife. Okay, so maybe 4. It's just 4. So this is my chef's knife. So this is an 8-inch. I also have a 10-inch. And I have a 10-inch because I had this since culinary school. But you would only need a 10-inch if you're tall. I'm 5'7". But if you are over 5'7", you're like maybe 5'11" and over, then you definitely want to make sure you're using a long knife, because there's a certain flow and a certain rhythm that your hand takes on when you're using a knife. So when you use a longer knife, a 10-inch, if you're tall, you don't put too much pressure on your tendons and your wrist when you're using a knife. So this is perfect to have if you're tall. My next knife that I want to talk about, if you're cutting bread, you're cutting a baguette, definitely make sure that you are using a bread knife. Because if you're using any other knife except for your bread knife, you will dull the blades and mess up your knife. And you get a cleaner cut with a bread knife. A bread knife, the teeth, the blades is designed to go through the crust of like a baguette or something like that. So this is the perfect knife to have. My next tool I want to talk about is a microplane. This is my microplane. And if you notice the blades, so the blades go in one way. So if you're using this and you're using a lemon, it's not behind me, but if you're using a lemon, only go in one direction. Don't seesaw on your microplane, because if you do, you push the blades back and you actually dull them. So just go in one direction because you're only trying to get the lemon zest. When you get the lemon zest out, it'll appear right up here in the top. Then you just either push it out with your finger or just tap it out like that. So this is invaluable, and if you use it right, you will have this for years. And let's see what else we have. So this, I love this. I always make sure I have this. So this is another handy dandy tool that I use. This is a bench scraper. A lot of people in baking and pastry use this, but a bench scraper is perfect for transporting items in the kitchen, because you want to make sure if you have a chef knife, a sharp knife, or you're using a knife, you're using it safely. Any knife can become a dangerous weapon if you're using it incorrectly. So a bench scraper, if you're not using it for baking and pastry, then when you're taking your onions or something that you've just chopped up, or your fresh herbs, to your cookware or your stove, you can easily take it over, push it out, and that's it. So there's no one, you can't hurt anyone with this. Also, I will always try to keep your area clean when you're cooking. So as soon as you make your big mess and you got all this stuff that you've chopped up on your cutting board, after you clean up stuff, and then you start the next task. So you want to really be organized in the kitchen. And a chic woman is organized. You're prepared. You're working with intent. You're working with a purpose. So you want to keep your kitchen clean. I find a lot of people don't like to do all of the cooking and all of the stuff because my kitchen gets messy. But if you keep it clean along the way, then you won't have a big mess at the end. So definitely a bench scraper. Another thing you can have on hand is what I use. I always keep this with me. This is by Le Creuset as well. I just have this in here, but I keep this empty. Yes, Cheryl, I do. I love the scraper as well. That's my best tool. So this right here is Le Creuset, but what I use is empty. So I keep it empty until I'm ready to use it when I'm cooking. Because all of my refuse, all of my stuff, I don't compost, but if I did, it would be perfect. So all of my stuff, I put it in here. So once I finish making one entree, I can dump all that into the garbage. And I don't have to worry about all of this mess around me on my countertop. So I just dump my garbage in here, and then I'll take it over to the garbage. Because if you're constantly going to the garbage, if you don't have the pedal that lifts it up and you have to touch it, it's just not sanitary. So you want to make sure you're keeping your kitchen clean and sanitary at the same time. So this is good to have. In terms of stuff that I use on a regular basis, I have this little plastic thing here to baste stuff on a steak or whatever, or pork loin. I always use my wooden spatula because I can leave it on the stove handle, on the pot handle, and it won't burn unless your fire is just too high. So it won't burn or it won't get hot. Like if you're using something like this, which is plastic, if you go to get this, it'll probably burn your hand because your hand is hot and this will heat up. So this wood handle doesn't heat up. And this is good for definitely if you're not scraping, but like getting fish off. You know, it can go underneath your pan and lift it. The next thing I want to just quickly talk about is my processor. My food processor. I have a mini one. I keep a mini one because when I work with my chef clients, I like something that's portable. So I use this because I'm not using it. It's just my husband and I don't need a lot of big items in the kitchen. The next thing I have is my peeler, my vegetable peeler, and I also I'm gonna use this to not zest my Parmesan, but like if I want a certain cut from the Parmesan cheese, I'll use this to get that nice cut from it. This is something I often use. I do like a fish on papillote a lot. Not a lot, but at least like once a week or so. So I just use parchment paper, wax paper, and I'll put it in and cook it in here. So if I cook fish on papillotes, which basically means just cooking fish inside of a parchment paper, so you're like cooking the flavors and the steam is staying in. So I pull out one of these and I use it and put it in the oven, put it on a sheet tray and put it in the oven. And the last thing is, there was something else I wanted to show you today. Oh, right. My favorite, here it is. My favorite salt. I use several different salts. There are so many different salts. There are so many different oils that you can use and cook with. I only cook high temperature heating with oils that are designed for that type of cooking. And so I will use a grapeseed oil for cooking high heat. I use olive oils for like dressing and making my vinaigrettes and my salads. I use a Malden sea salt. Malden sea salt is actually is made in Malden, UK. This is a really nice sea salt. It's really basically a finishing salt. So if you want some flakes or crunch on something, then you put it on as finishing. But I use it for regular cooking as well. But it's also good to have a really nice one. It's not as salty as like a grounded kosher salt, but kosher salt is good as well. So this is what I use. And the last thing, this is invaluable. I'm going to give you a tip. And this is my favorite tool. Whenever I just want to see if something will match something, because if you remember in yesterday's video, if you haven't watched it, go back and watch that video after this one, because in that video I talked a lot about menu planning and pairing and making sure you're putting certain foods with certain foods or spices with certain foods, and how you can go from Spanish cuisine to Latin cuisine. So this is called the Flavor Bible. Nope, it's not the Holy Bible, but it's a culinary Bible. This Bible, a lot of chefs use this and restaurants use this. So I'm going to give you one of my little secrets here. So this is the flavor Bible. So this is all chefs that I know, all of my colleagues love this book, and have one. More than likely they have one. So this book, I'll just give you a quick little example of one. So like if you're curious to know what goes with what, it gives you the flavor infinity. It gives you like the food or the spice, the herb or the fruit or vegetable that would be the perfect pairing for what you're doing. So if you're making duck, cheese, celery root goes with the carrots is a perfect pairing, bay leaf is a perfect pairing. And it also gives you like a few pairings, like duck breast with fava beans and roasted plums. So you know, ooh, fava beans and roasted plums will go with duck breast. So this is from A to Z. So any flavor that you can think of, any cheese, any fine herbs, filet mignon, anything that you're making, any food, anything that you put in your mouth, it's in this book, and it will tell you what is the best flavor pairing for that particular item. So those are my quick tips, and those are the tools that you should have in your home that will help you to make summer dining easy, chic, and delicious. So let me know on the bottom, was this helpful for you today? Was there any tidbit that you thought was great? No comments? You need to watch it again and think about it. I know it was a lot, but I think if you're going to cook well in the kitchen, then you need the best tools. And the best tools can execute some fabulous menus without a lot of grease, without a lot of time in the kitchen, and without a lot of know-how as well. So I hope if you have no questions, since no one's putting any at the bottom, thank you so much for joining me this evening, and until our next time together, stay beautiful and healthy.
5 minutes.